This is the C-32A, built to fly the president around while blending in with regular planes to keep his travel plans low-key and secure. But the C-32A is just one part of a hidden group of planes, a shadow fleet, if you will, and it is just as secretive as it sounds. Now, most of us at least generally understand Air Force One's role in presidential travel, right? It's the one that takes the president wherever he goes, complete with high-tech command center, defensive technology, and non-stop media coverage every time it lands or takes off. The truth is, though, Air Force One is just the tip of the iceberg in that regard. You see, during and shortly after the Cold War, the U.S. had huge security concerns and evolving threats, and this led to a lot of changes in how the U.S. leaders were kept safe during travel. One of the results of this is an undercover fleet of aircraft called the Air Defense Operations, or the ADO fleet. It was created to increase the ability to stay unnoticed and, as such, was designed for low-profile missions. The ADO fleet is made up of smaller, more flexible aircraft like the Gulfstream III, IV, and the C-32A, though it wasn't always the force of nature that it is now. The C-32A was introduced in the late 1900s, replacing the older C-137 Stratoliner, which had a lot of technology and physical limitations, like fuel efficiency, for example. For the C-32A, its 92,000-pound fuel capacity makes it able to travel twice the distance on the same amount of fuel as its predecessor. Unlike the large, unmistakable Air Force One, a Boeing 747, the C-32A is a modified Boeing 757. It has few markings and much more subtle profile than Air Force One, and it isn't just smaller. It is practically designed to be invisible. Well, not literally, but you get the point. In fact, it's common for the C-32A to accompany Air Force One on missions, or even replace it for trips where secrecy is the key. But don't mistake low profile for low tech. Yes, it is small, but the aircraft is packed with high-tech features. A traffic collision avoidance system, weather system enhanced with a predictive wind shear warning system, even a ground proximity warning system. It's capable of detecting, deflecting, and evading potential threats, and has encrypted communication systems that even allow the president to maintain constant contact with the military and the government. The list goes on and on. While the C-32A is the most well-known in the fleet, the Gulfstream aircraft are just as exciting. They can assist in smaller or more remote areas where the size of the C-32A isn't ideal, and have features designed to block potential tracking by hostile forces, which makes sure that the aircraft's flight path, landing sites, and onboard communication remains blocked from foreign intelligence or prying eyes. This also means that they're not only used for the president's travel. They transport other high-level U.S. government officials, including the vice president and senators, and sensitive equipment into areas where any sign of U.S. presence needs to be under the radar. Sadly, the exact information details of the ADO fleet are classified, which is pretty much the norm with high-security government operations. Over the years, as global threats evolved, the government had to expand its approach, and now the ADO fleet is a well-oiled machine. But without someone to tell the pilot where to go, even an aircraft like the C-32A is just another plane. The question is, how does the fleet manage to operate without attracting attention? The answer? The Secret Service. Specifically, their decoy strategies. Here's some food for thought. If you were the President of the United States and you had to attend a top-secret mission without anyone else noticing, what would you do? Would you prefer the assured safety of the flashy Air Force One? Or would you prefer a smaller, less recognizable aircraft? The C-32A doesn't just look different, it is different. It plays an entirely different role in presidential travel because it is ordinary, with a commercial airliner appearance that allows it to move through less conspicuous locations. And instead of larger international airports, it's small enough to touch down at smaller regional airports, letting it blend into the standard air traffic. This is especially useful when the president needs to visit certain locations or countries that simply aren't equipped to handle a massive Boeing 747 like Air Force One. But the Secret Service just doesn't rely on the plane's size to keep the president safe. They have decoy strategies for every mode of presidential transport, a technique that was designed to keep potential attackers confused. Take the Marine One decoys, for example. Every time the president takes a helicopter trip, multiple identical Marine One helicopters fly in formation. Imagine 5 cars that look the exact same in terms of size and color. Now guess which one is yours. Hard to do without a license plate or some sort of mark, right? When these identical planes fly side by side, they make it impossible for onlookers to pinpoint which helicopter the president is actually in. It's a moving shell game and is executed flawlessly to keep the president safe. When it comes to ground travel, it's pretty much the same deal. The presidential motorcade includes several versions of the Beast, an ultra-armored limousine. Identical versions of the vehicle, along with additional SUVs and specialized cars, all work together, creating a convoy that makes it incredibly difficult to tell which the president is in. In general, these decoy systems allow the Secret Service to make the president's exact location as much a mystery as they can to any and everyone watching, which in turn keeps the president protected from potential threats while moving freely and safely even in high-risk areas. And as annoying as getting stuck in traffic because a 2-mile-long presidential fleet is holding traffic up, this level of deception and strategy isn't just for show. It's important during missions that put the president in dangerous environments. Like, did you hear what happened during the president's trip to Ukraine, at a time when there was an active conflict in the country? Well, even if you have, allow us to refresh your memory of this secret journey to Ukraine, where the stakes couldn't have been higher. In February of 2023, President Biden made an unexpected and highly secretive visit to Ukraine. Frankly, this trip surprised the world, but only a few knew just how carefully this mission had been planned. So how exactly did the Secret Service pull off a journey into an active war zone? See, even top officials were unaware of this visit until the last minute. Instead of using Air Force One, Biden traveled on the C-32A. It lacks obvious presidential markings and was just like any other airplane on the landing strip. This choice allowed him to travel without sparkling media coverage that could compromise his safety, and the travel route itself was a masterpiece of planning. Only a handful of senior White House officials knew about the trip in advance. To avoid any misunderstandings about his decision to go there and to minimize any risks, even Russia was only informed of the visit a few hours before Biden's arrival. Once the C-32A landed in Europe, Biden didn't take a motorcade. Instead, he boarded a train and traveled further into Ukraine. By using rail transport, the Secret Service minimized the risks associated with motorcades in a conflict zone, like roadside bombs or ambushes. And the Secret Service had prepared for every possible scenario. As a backup, they even coordinated with the U.S. military to have an E-4B Night Watch, nicknamed the Doomsday Plane, on standby. Its nickname comes from its very specific function as a mobile command center during a national crisis, especially if nuclear attacks are involved. For instance, the aircraft is heavily shielded against electromagnetic pulses, or EMPs, that could disable standard electronics. Compared to other command centers, it uses satellite links and secure phone systems and is staffed with military personnel that are trained to operate under high pressure. And if that wasn't cool enough, the plane can also be refueled mid-air. Thing is, if ground-based command and control systems are destroyed, the E-4B can take off, stay airborne for long periods of time, and remain operational. This means that the government can continue to make decisions, issue orders, and even manage the military remotely. President Biden's trip to Ukraine really showed a combination of air, ground, and backup measures that allowed the president to visit an active war zone securely and undetected. It's a great example of how far the Secret Service, the military, and intelligence teams will go to protect the commander-in-chief. And it doesn't end there. The hidden system for presidential movement is actually a global network, one extending beyond the U.S. borders to include international collaboration and intelligence sharing. See, as good as the Secret Service are, even they have their limits. You might wonder how operations are managed when the president travels internationally. After all, American security teams can't control foreign airports, roads, and airspaces. So how does the Secret Service keep the president secure in foreign countries? When the president travels abroad, the Secret Service doesn't work alone. They can't. International travel needs close collaboration with host countries and their security agencies, as well as intelligence sharing between the U.S. and foreign governments. It's inevitable, and local law enforcement and military are often involved in the Secret Service's security strategies, especially for high-profile visits or when there is a credible threat. In some cases, U.S. military personnel are stationed nearby in case an evacuation or emergency extraction becomes necessary. For instance, during President Obama's visit to India in 2015, there was a backup fleet of military assets stationed within reach, including air support and special operations teams. These backup protocols for emergency extractions play a significant part of the president's safety plan, especially outside of the U.S. Special forces are trained to move the president to a safe location like a nearby U.S. embassy or airfield. The Secret Service and Department of Defense also continuously assess travel routes, local threats, and tensions to adjust strategies as needed. They aren't just going to send the president into countries that actively hate or are against the United States. That would be insane. The goal is not just to protect the president, but also maintain a safe, diplomatic presence that respects the customs and regulations of the host country. So the Secret Service can execute undercover and secure travel for the president pretty much anywhere in the world, making it possible for him to interact with allies and citizens abroad without compromising safety. So while Air Force One might be the face of presidential travel, it's only one piece of a complex, coordinated web of security that involves cooperation from allies worldwide. Bye for now.